بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. So, alhamdulillah, inshallah, your day went well, inshallah, your fast was okay. May Allah accept from you and all of your deeds and your fasting, inshallah, ameen. We are going to do a little overview of a couple of points from the third juz of the Qur'an. The third juz of the Qur'an, it covers the final section of Surah al-Baqarah and then a beginning section of Surah al-Imran. And this section of Surah al-Baqarah, it's dealing with a number of things. Part of it is dealing with community. It's dealing with sincerity in community, dealing with others. And I know that, when it comes to, dealing with the public, it's not easy to be a community, right? We all have different backgrounds and different personalities, and yet we have to find a way to come together for Allah's sake. So one of the themes that the final part of Surah al-Baqarah deals with is it deals with the issue of charity. And in a couple of different places, Allah talks about the importance of charity, but also not using charity or, alhamdulillah, if you are a person that Allah has blessed with the means to have something to give in charity, particularly wealth, one is reminded that that wealth in the first place comes from Allah and has been given to you, and a portion of it indeed should be given away. So a person should have humility when giving charity, and they should do so in a way that it does not belittle the recipient or mock the recipient of such sadaqah, of such charity, and it should not make them feel bad or less of a person for being in need. So for instance, in the 254th chapter, Allah says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu anfiqu mimma razaqnakum min qabli an ya'tiya yawm. Allah says, O you who believe, give away some of the wealth of which we have provided for you. أنفقوا مما رزقناكم. Let another person in here, right? أنفقوا مما رزقناكم من قبل أن يأتي يوم. Give away some of the money that we gave you in the first place before a day comes to you. And this is something we call in the ilm al-balagha fi al-lugha, right? This is something we in the rhetoric or the advanced science of eloquence of the Arabic language in the study of the Qur'an. More often than not, Allah actually refers to Yawm al-Qiyamah in the Qur'an. Occasionally He does refer to it specifically as Yawm al-Qiyamah. But in another way He refers it to as just Yawm. Yani yawmun, like just a day. And by referring to it as a day, it is to increase and give a sense of dread. Because if you know exactly when the day is going to be, you can fully prepare for it. If, for instance, in school, if your professor, your teacher, if they tell you there's, today is Monday and Friday morning there's going to be a test, you can either, you could potentially spend the whole week preparing for it. You could spend the whole week procrastinating for it. Either way, the dread of it isn't as intense of there's going to be a test sometime coming up. So when Allah chooses to refer to the day of judgment in the infinitive, min qabli an ya'tiya yawm, it's to increase the sense of trepidation and dread that we have of being secure in ourselves. So when Allah is saying, give up some of this money, and Allah knows, psychologically, we do not like to give up money. We love money. As we talked about the verse yesterday, Allah says, وَلَنُوَلَّنَّكُمْ what? We promise to test you with what? The loss of what? Amwal wa anfus. He puts wealth before money. And it reveals how much we like money. We sometimes care more about money than life. And we see that now. Like if there's a disaster that strikes, we often measure the disaster in its how many millions or billions or trillions of dollars in damage. And often we don't even think about the people. And this is a part of human nature. So Allah is saying what? أَنْفِقُوا مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاكُم مِّن قَبْلِ أَن يَأْتِيَ يَوْمٌ لَا بَيْعٌ فِيهِ. And on that day, there will be no bargaining, which means that in some way, by giving up the money, right? Because when money is given, it's always in exchange for something. This is the brilliant part, right? There's a kind of a universal constant that Allah gives here to the concept of money. Money always is given in exchange for something else. You buy a car, you have to pay this $20,000, whatever, right? Whenever you give money, you're getting something back. And Allah is saying that do your bay' now, because there will come a day when all sales are final and you cannot exchange. So he says, what? La bay'un fihi. On the day of judgment, there will be no bargaining. But bargain now by what? Giving away part of what I already gave you. So you're getting a double deal. The money came, you didn't earn the money came to you from Allah as part of your rizq, and you just simply have to have the trust to give some of it up on this investment. Allah is essentially, right, He is your trust fund, your hedge fund investor. Invest in your own future, which is ultimately in your akhirah. What? La bay'un fihi, wa la khulla. There is also what? There's going to be no trading, and there's not going to be any benefit to friendship, because what you're doing is actually part of giving your money away is to make yourself khalil. Right? The word here, khullatun, min nafs al-asl, al-kalimatu khalil. It comes from the same root word of the word khalil. Khalil is what? Not only a good friend, but somebody that benefits you in their friendship. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, الرجل على دين خليله فلينظر أحدكم من يخلل, right? That a man or a person is on the deen of their khalil. And therefore, look carefully at who you take as your khalil. So now, before then, make this transaction that inshaAllah, Allah will make you khalil. Because He says on that day, لا بيع فيه ولا خلة ولا خلة ولا شفاعة. Nobody will be able to intercede. You can intercede on your behalf now as a preemptive measure by giving up. وَالْكَافِرُونَ هُمَ الظَّالِمُونَ. And therefore, to juxtapose, the ayah begins with يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, the people of Iman, the people of faith. It ends with the people of kufr. It ends with the people of disbelief. And therefore, the person that is not going to give up not going to believe, and their belief is then, it's to look at it in some ways, belief is the subject and the predicate is all of these things. The predicate, what defines the subject, right? So the definition of Iman that Allah is helping us to flesh out here is what? Infaqul mal, right? Min rizqina. It's the giving of wealth from what Allah has provided for us. It is to what? Before the day comes, it is to make that transaction now, to bargain for it before it's too late. It is to, inshallah, put ourselves in Allah's good graces, inshallah, to be khalil, wala khullatun, and then what? Wala shafa'a. In order to have that shafa'at, in order for us to have that intercession, we have to do these things. At the risk, or if we don't do these things, then what? Allah says, wal kafirun. That then is a person who is kafir, right? Which is beyond simply just being disbeliever. It means they're not intelligent, they're not grateful, they're not obedient. They're not obedient, and they do not recognize Allah's authority, right? So when we see verses that contrast iman and kufr, belief and disbelief, pay heavy attention, because it's giving you the qualities that embody each of those terms. The mu'min and the kafir are each given definitions by this. And then, of course, in the 255th ayah is perhaps maybe the most famous verse in all of the Qur'an. Allahu la ilaha illahu al-hayy wal-qayyum. This is known as the ayatul kursi, right? The ayatul kursi Allahi min al-arsh, right? This is the verse of the throne upon which Allah sits upon. And a couple of commentaries on the verse of the throne. It is said that it is actually the greatest verse in the Qur'an. And it's interesting that the Prophet ﷺ one day actually asked Ubay ibn Ka'ab. Ubay ibn Ka'ab is one of the greatest companions of the Prophet ﷺ, may Allah be pleased with him, and one of the greatest in terms of the Qur'an, of its recitation and its knowledge. And therefore the Prophet ﷺ really shows something here, and I'll read you this hadith because it's worthy of really taking some gems from. So he says, Ya Aba Mundhar, atadri ay ayatin min kitabillahi ma'aka a'azam? O Ubay ibn Ka'ab, he calls him Abu Mundhar, right, as his kunya, as his title. He says, do you know which ayah in the book of Allah that is with you that is the greatest? Which is the greatest verse in the Qur'an? And of course, he answers, eventually, they go back and forth, and he keeps saying, well, Allah and His Messenger know best. And eventually, he gets the hint that he's kind of being quizzed by the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet wants him to give an answer. And so he gives the answer of Allahu la ilaha illahu al-hayyul qayyum. He gives the answer of ayatul kursi. And he says he said, rejoice in this knowledge. Be happy that you've given the right answer. And this shows something important in the relationship between the Prophet ﷺ and his companions, not just simply clarifying that ayatul kursi is the greatest ayah in the Qur'an, which by general consensus amongst the scholars from a hadith like this that it is, but it shows that the Prophet ﷺ wanted to make sure that his companions, that they were learning. He didn't want them just simply to soak up this passively, right, this information. He wanted to make sure, like, are you guys really getting this? Do you understand this message? Do you understand this book? So he kept asking, and he gives them the question, and then the Prophet ﷺ is happy, and he tells them, rejoice in the knowledge that you have of this right answer, meaning you're getting it, you're understanding it. And that's why I emphasize, many times over and over and over in middle ground, in khutab, in classes, read the book yourself. Like, alhamdulillah, as a teacher, I can be there to try to answer questions you may have, but I can never supplant or replace your need to read this book for yourself, even if it's in whatever colloquial language English, Spanish, whatever, read it. Nothing can replace you reading this book yourself. That's one of the beautiful gems that we can take from that. And then a few ayats later, Allah goes back to the topic of sadaqah, and we'll just emphasize this again, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. We forget that just because we are believers, right, doesn't mean we're perfect. Doesn't mean we have all the right answers. Doesn't mean we don't make mistakes. So Allah is addressing the believers, but then is also admonishing them. Because you will sometimes, unfortunately, find Muslims who will do bad things or make mistakes, right? We are not perfect people. So Allah addresses the believers that they have faith. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la tubtilu sadaqatikum bil manni wal adha. O you who believe, do not render your charity, your sadaqah, as batil, as basically void. Don't wipe it out by what? Bil manni, by putting demands on people to express their gratitude for giving the sadaqah to them, right? Wal adha, or insulting them, like here, throwing it at somebody, insulting them, right? كَالَّذِي يُنْفِقُ مَالَهُ رِئَالَهُ, right? رِئَاءَ النَّاسِ, right? He says this is a form of riyā, this is a form of showing off. And if you do this, you're basically canceling out the good that you did, and then at the same time acquiring a bad deed, right? So you're not only just going back to zero, you're going to negative. And so when we give in charity, it should be with humility. We should not look down upon a person that Allah has arranged their affairs, that they need help. Because all of us at some point need something from Allah. We all need help. We are all, Allah says what? Ya ayyuhan nas antumul fuqara'u ila Allahi. O mankind, every single one of you, from the first to the last, are all faqir. You are all poor and impoverished compared to Allah, right? So when we give in charity, it should be done in such a way that we actually ennoble. It should be for karama, to ennoble people. And of course, first and foremost, for the ridwan of Allah, to please Allah and to gain His happiness. He says, كَالَّذِي يُنْفِقُ مَالَهُ رِئَاءَ النَّاسِ وَلَا يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. A person who does this is not the kind of, he begins with saying, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, O people of faith. If you render your charity null and void by either belittling, insulting, or demanding people with the charity you will give, وَلَا يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ, you are essentially the kind of person, because you believe كَالَّذِي, you are similar to the person that does not believe in Allah or the last day in the first place, even though he's addressing people that believe in Allah and the last day. This really highlights the seriousness of the etiquette around charity, because a person can have the outward appearance of being a believer, and Allah is saying, if you do this, كَالَّذِي يُنْفِقُ مَالَهُ رِئَاءَ النَّاسِ وَلَا يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. I mean, that's a really heavy statement. You will be like a person that doesn't believe in Allah or in the last day. وَمَثَلُهُ كَمَثَلِ الصَّفْوَانٍ عَلَيْهِ تُرَابٍ. His likeness will be like that of a smooth rock. But when the rain comes, فَأَصَابَهُ, right? فَتَرَكَهُ saldan. The rain comes and it washes it away, meaning like the rock doesn't retain any of the things that give life, right? Soil that will grow into fruits or plants or something, it just gets wiped bare, right? So the parable is that when Allah sends down the rain, this is His rizq. He's giving it to us. Our rizq is in the sky, it's in the heaven. Allah sends it down to us. But if you're the kind of person that will either belittle people or demand, some display of gratitude, then Allah says this is like a rock that when the rain comes down, it just washes it and it produces no benefit from the rain that comes down. So we have to be very careful in the way that we deal with sadaqah. And of course, this is the month a lot of us like to give sadaqah in, and it is indeed, mashallah, a wonderful month to give our sadaqah in. Just to be extra careful in the adab and the etiquette around which we give to charity. يَقْدِرُونَ عَلَى شَيْءٍ مِمَّا كَسَبُوا, right? Allah is saying what? They have no power over anything that they have earned. It didn't come for you in the first place. So whatever we have, whether Allah, mashallah, has blessed us with a lot, or even if He has blessed us with a little, understand the decision of that disbursement, we had no power. لا يقدرون على شيء مما كسبوا والله لا يهدي القوم الكافرين. Again, Allah refers to what? Allah does not guide a people who are kafir. And this begins with addressing the believer. So we should never be too comfortable in our position as Muslims or believers to think that, alhamdulillah, ana u'minu billahi wa bi rasulihi wa rusulihi wa kutubihi wa malaikatihi wa, I believe in Allah and the angels and the messengers and the books and the last day. Yes, alhamdulillah, that's wonderful. But, as Darth Vader would say, don't be too proud, right? Don't have too much affectation or a sense of pride simply because you have faith. You are still you still have to be observant of your actions and to ensure that they are filled with ikhlas, with sincerity, and with haya, with humility. One of the things about Ayat al-Kursi, of course, is, as we said, it has been described as the greatest verse in the Qur'an. And there's a couple of different tales from the Sahaba around it. One of them is that, actually, again, with Ubay ibn Ka'b, his father used to keep some timr, some dates, in a vessel. And he, when he went to go check on them, he would notice, like, there's not as many in here as there used to be in here. So when he told his son about this, and his son one day saw somebody kind of creeping up to steal it, so he caught the person, and he noticed that even though they looked kind of like they were a human boy, they had their hand looked like the paw of a dog. And this was obviously a jinn, one of the shayateen, and he said, you know what, I'm going to drag you off to the Prophet ﷺ, and I'm going to report you. And he said, no, don't please do that. I tell you what, I will give you something in exchange for letting me go that will protect you actually from us. Right? And we have this in another riwayah as well. And he said, if you say the Ayatul Kursi before going to bed, then essentially the shayateen, they will not be able to influence you, in your home, in your dreams, and so on and so on. And that's where the Prophet ﷺ said, even the evil one speaks the truth sometimes, right? That he spoke the truth on that. So it's true that Ayatul Kursi is one of the parts of the Qur'an that we use for isti'adha, or for protection, right? From hasad, al-ain, all kinds of shar, all kinds of evil. But you will notice the specificity is that recite. Now, unfortunately, Muslims love to have Ayat al-Kursi, on a necklace, on a ring. They hang it from their rear view mirror in the car, and they've turned, a'udhu billah, they have turned the Ayat al-Kursi into some kind of a sanam, right? They've tried to turn it into like an amulet or something. And the hadith is telling us it's in the recitation of it, not in the hanging it on your wall, right? Saying it yourself. This is why, again, I repeat over and over and over, recite this book for yourself, establish a relationship with this book yourself. I'm not saying you can't have a plaque of Ayatul Kursi, but the hadith is specific that the isti'adha of this ayah comes from its recitation yourself, not just from it hanging on a wall. And generally, this makes sense that this book has been revealed to us, and again, our book is called The Recitation. If you wanted to translate, in a literal way, the word Qur'an, it means recitation. So Al-Qur'an is the recitation. So Ayatul Kursi, inshallah, to gain its benefits, indeed, to recite it before going to bed, or even in other times of trouble, recite it yourself. Do not rely upon the pendant or the necklace or the amulet or whatnot. It's something that, inshallah, should be engaged. Since we only have a couple minutes left, I know one person asked a question in, let's see, in the WhatsApp group. Let's see, only for those following them. Yeah, so somebody asked about the Nawafil prayer. Can you after the Fatiha, can you read from a Qur'an that is not in Arabic for the prayer? There's a very, very minor opinion that a person can, if they are following an imam, they can read. Now, this is something much later on. This is not something we get from the Prophet ﷺ, neither from the companions. This is from some fiqh of latter day, particularly from the Malikiyya, from the people of Imam Malik's madhab, much later on, that have some minor opinions that it is permissible if you are the ma'mum, you are the follower of the imam, and as long as the imam is reading in the, reciting in the Arabic for the prayer, it's permissible. For myself, personally, No, even though I greatly respect the opinions of the Maliki madhab, and a lot of the and this is why most of the scholars will say no, but I mention this because it does exist. Likewise, there's also from some of the latter-day Malikiya had a difference of opinion, very minor, not the dominant opinion, that when a person is in sujood in the optional prayers, including like at-tarawih, that a person in the dua, for instance, like in sujood, the dua can be in something other than Arabic. But for the fara'id prayers, there's agreement, it has to be in the English. That was from some of the questions that were in the WhatsApp group. So I will open it up. If anybody has any last questions before we go, inshallah. I'm sorry, say that again? Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm still sort of food drunk at this moment from iftar. Yes, that the dominant opinion is whether it's for nawafil or fara'id, whether it's for the mandatory or the extra prayers, the dominant opinion is it all should be in Arabic. But there were some latter-day Malikiya that had opinions that for the nawafil, for the non-mandatory prayers, that a person, if they're following an imam, could read from a language other than Arabic, as long as they're following and the imam is reading and praying and reciting in the Arabic, and also in the sujood, certain du'at that you can make in the sujood, that again, the overall dominant opinion is that it, sorry, I gotta mute that person, that it should be in the Arabic, but there are some minor opinions that in the sujood it could be in the English for the nawafil, for the optional prayers. Any other comments, questions anybody has? Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Of course, Surah Yusuf is a wonderful surah because it involves the story of Yusuf alayhi salam and the hardship that he went through. Of course, if you read in the Qur'an as a whole, right, you will read about the hardship of numerous people, in particular the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I also would encourage you to read. There's some wonderful biographies, the Sirat Nabawiyya of the Prophet ﷺ that are in the English language. So of course, I think there's the Sealed Nectar, Ar-Rahiq al-Makhtum, that's been translated as a sealed nectar. Even Martin Ling's Sirah of the Prophet ﷺ, I forget the name of it, maybe if somebody knows off the top of their head, but Martin Ling's has a biography of the Prophet. There's been several of them. So, and also just, when you read the Qur'an, you will see that it's also a promise of Allah that you will get hardship. And the thing is not, there isn't any maybe particular ayah that's going to unlock the key for you, but just to understand from a broad base, difficulty, hardship is part of the deal. And that when Allah is testing you, it's part of it. And He says, well, we will, without a doubt, وَلَا نُبَلَوَنَّكُمْ, we will, like nun tashdid, we will without a doubt test you, right, with all of these things, right, naqsum min al-amwali wal-anfus, and so, with loss of wealth and life and all these other things, right? This is a promise of Allah. So not to understand or to falsely interpret hardship is equaling, Allah must be angry or displeased with me, right? And that's why Allah says, Inna Allaha ma'as sabirin. Or in another, actually the verse that we just talked about, at the end of it, it says, وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. Give good news to those that have the ability to withstand hardship. And therefore, read and study and contemplate and talk to people that, perhaps could, like a counselor, like with anything else, that can perhaps help you arrange the pieces or the furniture in a way in your mind that you can be able to come to this. I think that's what, to seek good counsel is for. It might not be something you can completely do on your own, and seek out people that can perhaps help, you understand these actions or these things that have transpired in your life, so that you can not necessarily banish them or make them go away, or you will instantly feel good, but you will still be able to have sabr and hikmah. You will be able to have a sense of perseverance, and you will have the wisdom to understand how and why it's happening to you. Go ahead. Anybody else? Any thoughts, questions? We got about 2 minutes. So inshallah, we will be back again tomorrow for the 4th Juz of the Qur'an. If there's also anything else, like if there's something else you guys have a question, you can find me anywhere. You know how to find me on Facebook, Instagram, whatever. Just shoot me a message. If there's something that, questions you want to have answered, or maybe something you don't want to ask publicly, you would rather have answered privately, inshallah, just hit me up. And if I don't, I'm well connected with people who do, inshallah, and we can keep it confidential. So with that, we'll end, of course, with a dua. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وصلي وسلم وبارك على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Inshallah, may Allah Ta'ala bless all of you again, except from you, from this blessed month, and inshallah put all of the sakina and all of the thamarat and the jawahir of this blessed month, inshallah, fi qulubikum, in your hearts, inshallah. وجزاكم الله خيرا. السلام عليكم.